Chapter 469. The person who walked in was Movie Queen and of course, Manager Lee, whom General Qin had sent over. Movie Queen Anne's elegant and beautiful face paused for a moment when she saw the youngster. Then she smiled with two charming dimples. Fujio? Why didn't you tell me you were coming? Fujio stood up politely and smiled faintly. Brother Emo drank too much, so I brought him back. Drank too much? After hearing this, Movie Queen Anne turned around and looked at Manager Lee in confusion. He seemed to be asking if her son had ever drunk too much before. Manager Lee had seen much of the world. He calmly greeted Qin Emo. Young Master Fu. Then he stood aside and didn't say anything. He really didn't want to say that his young master couldn't withstand special training, and that even 3 bottles of Wuliangye couldn't make him drunk. Movie Queen Anne didn't care too much. Since the youngster she liked was here, she would ask Fujio to try on the clothes she mentioned. Fujio naturally wouldn't agree. She smiled faintly and said, Auntie, I'll try it on another day. Since you're back, you can take care of Brother Emo. His stomach isn't feeling well, and I have an appointment to keep. It's already past time, so I have to go now. Movie Queen Anne was a reasonable person. She smiled and said, all right, another day. No one noticed that while the two of them were talking, Qin Emo, who was sitting at the dining table eating porridge, had a pair of icy eyes. Fujio didn't say anything more. She put on her black jacket and made a, I'm leaving, gesture to Qin Emo. But she didn't know if the Almighty didn't see it, but he didn't care about her. Maybe it was because he was eating porridge. She didn't have time to think too much. Yaoyao must be waiting anxiously. With this thought, Fujio quickened her steps. She didn't look back. But as soon as she looked back, Qin Mo's hand, which was holding the wooden spoon, paused heavily after she left. Qin Emo ate 2 more mouthfuls of porridge, but he realized that the taste seemed to have changed. It didn't have the same aroma as before. In the end, he put down the bowl and turned to take the black coat from the back of the chair. Movie Queen Anne looked at him. Emo, where are you going? Didn't you say you had a stomachache? I'm fine now. Qin Mo's voice was calm, and his walking posture didn't look like someone who had a stomachache just now. He recovered so quickly? This stomach ailment is really magical. Movie Queen Anne muttered to herself as she watched her son's tall figure disappear by the door. And why was there no one at home? What about Auntie Zhang and the others? Usually he should be at home at this time. Movie Queen Anne was bewildered. On the other hand, Qin Emo was looking for someone after he went out. But after searching for a long time, he couldn't find any trace of the young man. He must have gotten into the car and gone to the meeting place. Qin Emo continued walking forward in silence. His movements were slow and elegant, which seemed to match his usual nonchalant attitude. It was just that the fingers hidden under the black gloves used strength. He stared expressionlessly at the emptiness in front of him, and stood there silently. Gradually, a cool breeze touched his body, however, he didn't seem to feel it. There was no smile on his handsome face. For some reason, his chest felt a little stuffy. That kind of feeling is like seeing something you like very much. He wanted to take it for himself. He didn't hesitate to use all means. Chapter 470. The Jiang family's birthday banquet couldn't be ordinary. In reality, Shui Yaoyao didn't want to appear at such an occasion, because she knew that Jiang's didn't want her as a sister, and didn't want to accept her as a mother. As long as she saw the man's expressionless side profile, Shui Yaoyao would panic. She wished that her mother didn't marry Uncle Jiang. But she couldn't be so selfish, because she knew that Uncle Jiang was a good person. When it came to her mother, Uncle Jiang was really careful and gentle. Everyone said that her mother had accumulated good fortune in her past life, that she could get a rich husband by buying breakfast. It was probably because she was old and didn't have so many thoughts. Jiang's father was a soldier, and liked Mama Shui's gentleness in taking care of others. There had always been misunderstandings between him and his son. The family couldn't live without a mistress. Jiang's father had hesitated about remarrying. In the end, he had decided to marry her. It was normal for them to get to know each other and fall in love. He had to give the woman a status. He had discussed this with Jiang's. Jiang's had only told him to do as he pleased. He didn't seem to dislike it, but he didn't agree either. Until he saw Shui Yaoyao's family, his expression changed completely. He seemed to be certain that Shui Yaoyao's mother was doing it for money. Perhaps even Jiangzhua didn't know why he didn't want his father to remarry. But at the same time he understood. In the Jiang family, he would always be the legitimate grandson. With his grandfather around, any woman had to follow the rules. Shui Yaoyao's mother understood this. She treated Jiangzhua like a child. After all, no matter how noble he was only 3 years older than Shui Yaoyao. But after interacting with him, Shui Yaoyao's mother understood. Children had different ways of thinking. For example, Jiangzhua. He was a mature child and she had to consider everything. But that was normal since she was someone else's stepmother. A few days before the birthday party, she had told the children at home to be quiet when they arrived at the Jiang family, and not to take what they shouldn't take. Shui Yaoyao knew that her mother had to consider many things after marrying into this family. Hence, even when Shui Yaoyao was mocked, she didn't tell her mother. Just like now. What do you think she's doing at this birthday party? Don't tell me he still hasn't given up on young Master Jiang. That's disgusting. In the past, I only thought that she was fat, but now that young Master Jiang is her brother, she wants to be close to him? Didn't you see how much young Master Jiang hates their family? You don't say. Some poor people don't even care about their self-esteem for money. For example, her mother married Uncle Jiang for money. Shui Yaoyao clenched her fists tightly. If it wasn't for her mother's reminder, she really wanted to rush over and tell these rich people. Not all poor people do things for money. Why did these people always judge a person's character by whether they had money or not? Perhaps it was because of these reasons that she was unwilling to come to the Jiang family. However, she couldn't not come to such an occasion. Look at her. Why did she learn to wear a skirt? She's so ugly. Why do I feel like she has lost some weight? Chapter 471. Shui Yaoyao heard their words and knew that these people had a good relationship with Jiangzhua. She didn't know if they said that because Jiangzhua hated her. For a moment, she couldn't take it anymore. She lifted her eyes and looked at one of the girls. That girl saw Shui Yaoyao looking at her, and her anger rose. She immediately sneered, thinking that this poor thing dared to look at her like that. Come. Since it's a birthday party, we should find something to liven things up. That girl was dressed very beautifully, and she spoke with a smile. Her family was very rich. Standing beside her was none other than Han Susu, who had been obsessed with Fu Jiu recently. They were all from the same school, had a good relationship, and often hung out together. To be honest, if it weren't for Jiangzhua, they wouldn't even look at Shui Yaoyao. Because in their hearts, a fat and poor person like Shui Yaoyao was an embarrassment to girls like them. Jejia, what do you want to play? Han Susu knew what her friend wanted to do, but she decided to go along with it. They would be happy to let that fat pig leave as soon as possible. But Yao Jia didn't think so. She had always liked Jiangzhua, and it wasn't easy for her to get the chance to be with him. Why could this fat pig see Jiangzhua every day just because she was his sister? Isn't this a wine bottle? Let's not go overboard. Let's just play dare. Whoever spins it, that person has to find someone of the opposite sex to hug. Yao Jia began to spin the wine bottle as she spoke. Her strength was clearly intentional as the bottle turned to the left and aimed at Shui Yaoyao. I didn't expect things to be so coincidental. Yao Jia pretended to be surprised as she looked at Shui Yaoyao. Then she laughed. Since you've been chosen, go ahead. Shui Yaoyao's eyes darkened. I didn't say I wanted to participate in your game. Shui Yaoyao, do you still want to quarrel with everyone on such an occasion? Yao Jia's voice was indifferent. It's just a game. Shui Yaoyao wanted to say something, but she saw Jiangzhua walking over. Behind him were his good friends. They were all noble and handsome. It was obvious that Jiangzhua had heard their conversation. But the man didn't say anything. Shui Yaoyao thought that he might have tacitly approved of her behavior. They even felt that she would spoil everyone's mood if she didn't agree. Yaoyao really didn't want her mother to have a hard time in this family, because of her. But who was she going to find to hug? The person standing behind Jiangzhua laughed. Your sister is so dumb. She could have just hugged you. She had thought that Jiangzhua wouldn't agree, but she hadn't expected him to respond with a faint mmh. But why would Shui Yaorao hug Jiang Zua? That person had already told her to stay away from him. Especially after that kind of thing had happened, Shui Yaoyao was afraid to recall what happened that night, because the man's disgusted expression was so obvious. If he went up now, he would probably be despised even more. Shui Yaoyao had her own pride. Compared to Jiang Zua, the stranger was probably better. With that thought in mind, Shui Yaoyao plucked up her courage and asked for a hug from a stranger at the party. Chapter 472. Yao Jia watched from the side, her lips curling up. She had expected such a situation. Who would be willing to accept an invitation from a fat pig? The reason why she suggested this was to embarrass Shui Yaoyao. It would also let that person know that even if she entered the Jiang family, she wasn't fit to be Jiang Zuo's sister. People from the slums would never be on the same level as them. If the other party was good-looking and knew how to suck up to them, it would be fine. But Shui Yaoyao hadn't expressed anything after so long. She was just a poor person, so what was she being so arrogant about? Shui Yaoyao also knew that the other party was deliberately making things difficult for her. Perhaps we will encounter such occasions. She clearly knew what methods the other party used and what intentions they had. But for someone more important than herself, she couldn't resist or make a fuss. Because if she did anything, she would be criticized again. Her mother didn't teach her well. Children from ordinary families didn't know the big picture, etc. The laughter by her ear was obvious. She stood there stiffly, wanting to throw everything away. Yao Jia crossed her arms and chuckled. Yaoyao, why aren't you moving? Go quickly, there are still people over there. Since we're going to play, let's play to our heart's content. Go quickly. A circle of people ostracizing another. This kind of behavior was usually the most effective at killing people without leaving a trace. A rich person's values weren't necessarily better than a poor person's. Things like values were never judged by age or wealth. But rich people often used money as a weapon. And some people indeed wanted to suck up to those who were rich. Such a phenomenon had existed since the beginning of time. That was why there were so many people helping Yao Jia to resist Shui Yaoyao. The longer this dragged on, the more embarrassed Shui Yaoyao would be. The fact that no one accepted her hug was an insult to one's self-esteem. Jiang Zua gripped his wine glass, his charming peach blossom eyes showing signs of turning cold. His good friend behind him wanted to say something, but for some reason, he took a step toward Shui Yaoyao. However, no one had expected that there would be someone faster than him. It was a tall and slender figure that appeared behind Shui Yaoyao. His short silver hair was messy, and there were still traces of snow on it. The black diamond earrings matched with the leather jacket only made the man look handsome and luxurious, with the fair skin of a vampire noble. Standing in front of a group of men in suits, he was one of a kind. It was because the figure was too handsome. Therefore, everyone couldn't help but turn around and look over. Shui Yaoyao felt someone tugging at her arm from behind, followed by a cold hug. The youngster's gentle and pleasant voice rang out warmly. I'm late because of the traffic jam. I was right behind you. Why didn't you invite me to hug you, Yaoyao wanted to cry. She really wanted to cry. She buried her face into the young man's shoulder, and the corners of her mouth lifted into a smile. With Highness Jiu around, there was nothing to be afraid of. Fu Jiu had always protected Yaoyao unconditionally. Moreover, she believed that things like protection were relative. When she was facing cyberviolence, the girl in his arms was the first to speak. People would have many friends in their lifetime, but true friends. Chapter 473. As for the embrace of these two people, discussions immediately broke out. Look, isn't that the popular Spadesy in the esports circle? F***CK, I never expected my big spade to attend such a birthday party. Who's that person he's carrying? Girlfriend? Wait a minute, why do I find that girl familiar? She's my Yaoyao. What, your Yaoyao? He's also playing Hero Supreme Alliance. Move aside. Don't disturb my view of my idol. I want to see my big spade. The two of them seem to have a good relationship. They're hugging each other. What do you think? For some reason, I feel like they're a good match. It had to be said that such a scene was very beautiful. Under the light, The black earring on the young man's ear was still emitting a faint glow. He was handsome and flamboyant. Han Susu watched from the side. She was originally happy that the young man had appeared. But when she saw the youngster pull Yao Yao into his arms, her gaze turned hostile. However, no one noticed that apart from Han Susu, there was another person who clenched his fists as he watched this scene. It was none other than Jiang Zhua. Jiang Zhua's friend didn't even have time to retract the shock on his face. What did Jiang Zhua intend to do with that step? Fujio noticed his gaze. She looked over and smiled. Young Master Jiang, we meet again. Jiang Zhua's attitude was much colder when he saw the youngster. He glanced at Yao Yao and replied with a faint mmh. Fujio was standing next to Shui Yao Yao. She glanced around and smiled. Yao Yao is a girl. It's not a game to let her hug someone so casually. But young Master Jiang doesn't seem to mind that someone would play such a dirty game at his birthday party. Jiang Zhua narrowed his eyes. However, Yao Jia's expression changed because of the word vile. It's not up to you to decide if it's vile or not. Yao Yao, what's the meaning of this? Did you bring your friend here to cause trouble? Shui Yao Yao wanted to speak. Fujio pulled her back and said emotionlessly, it's a misunderstanding. We are usually very busy playing hero, so we don't have time to mess around. Today, Yao Yao came just to give us a gift. After all, we are all from the Jiang family. But this lady, your surname doesn't seem to be Jiang, right? In Jiang family's territory, young Master Jiang can tolerate an outsider questioning his sister. Young Master Jiang has a good temper, but I'm different. Yao Yao is my teammate. Since no one here welcomes us, Yao Yao, where's the stuff you bought? Give it to young Master Jiang. Young Master Jiang is very generous. He won't mind if you leave early or not. There was a lot of content in this speech. There were so many that Jiang Zhua's gaze changed. He looked at Shui Yao Yao, his eyes cold. It was the first time Shui Yao Yao could look him in the eye. She had never owed Jiang Zhua anything. Even if she was delusional and used that kind of gaze to fall in love with this person. And every time, because he talked to her, she felt that she was different. If there was a chance, she wanted to tell Jiang Zhua, I only like you. If you don't like me, you can tell me. I will give up, even if the process of giving up is a little difficult. But I have never wanted to hinder you or take you away from anyone. I understand that liking someone is also a form of self-respect. Shui Yao Yao didn't say much and took out the gift. Happy birthday. These were the most ordinary words. Very polite. This way, no one would say that she and her mother were poor and uncultured. Chapter 474. Jiang Zhua didn't reach out for the gift. He just looked at Shui Yao Yao, his voice faint. Are you leaving early? Shui Yao Yao wasn't sure if he didn't mind that her gift wasn't expensive enough. Honestly speaking, her gift was indeed more expensive than what others had given him. For example, a luxury car or a luxury watch. There was no need for Shui Yao Yao to stay here. She wasn't suited for this kind of environment. Instead of being on guard against some people's despicable means, she might as well go to the internet cafe with Highness Jiao. The competition has already begun. I need to practice. Seeing that he didn't accept the gift, Shui Yao Yao turned and passed the gift to the receptionist beside her. Jiang Zhua's gaze turned extremely cold. Did you change your target again? His words successfully made Shui Yao Yao's back stiffen. At this moment, Fujio curled up her thin lips and brought Shui Yao Yao over. The gift is here. Say goodbye to Auntie and leave. The competition is so busy, so you don't have to come here if you don't want to. With that, she lifted her eyes and looked deeply into Jiang Zhua's eyes. Young Master Jiang, we shall take our leave. Jiang Zhua didn't speak, his gaze deepening as he stared at their backs, his grip on the cup tighter. The people at the side could tell that Jiang Zhua was unhappy, but everyone thought it was because Shui Yao Yao wasn't generous enough. Hence, Jiang Zhua's smile disappeared. Yao Jia said from the side, birds of a feather flock together. The Fu family's young master doesn't seem to have a good reputation. When did Yao Rao hang out with such a person? Jiang Zhua, cheer up. It's good that these people aren't from our circle are gone. With them around, your birthday banquet will be even happier. Han Susu immediately spoke up. What bad reputation? Don't spout nonsense. I know my idol well. Yao Yao is only taking care of him because she's in the same team as him. At the end of the day, it's all Yao Yao's fault. She's clingy. The scene just now had already agitated Han Susu. She had never imagined that the youth would be so gentle to anyone. She could tolerate the youth being nice to Brother Qin. After all, they were two grown men. But he was actually good to a fat girl? Han Susu couldn't tolerate this. He was sure that Shui Yao Yao was trying to seduce him. She had seduced Big Brother Jiang in the past, but now she didn't even let her Prince Charming off. Why don't you take a look at yourself? So cheap. The more Han Susu thought about it, the darker her eyes became. She's trying to suck up to Fu Jiu again. I can tell as well. Yao Jia muttered disdainfully. Why are both mother and daughter so virtuous? Before she could finish her sentence, a muffled sound of glass shattering interrupted the soft music playing in the hall. In an instant, there was an unprecedented silence in the banquet. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound, including Yao Jia. Jiang Zuo was still standing there, the cuffs of his white shirt stained with blood. He couldn't tell if it was red wine or blood. The wine glass was crushed in his palm. His face didn't change at all. Instead, his eyes were very deep as he looked at the girls in front of him. Ask them to leave. Young master. The receptionist was still hesitant. After all, they all had business dealings, not to mention that Miss Han was inside. Chapter 475. At that moment, everyone understood that young Master Jiang was really angry this time. Han Susu's face turned pale. Brother Jiang, are you saying that you're chasing me away? Jiang Zuo didn't speak, but his attitude was obvious. Why? Han Susu's anger rose. Are you afraid of hurting our feelings? Jiang Zuo turned his head, his voice faint. Why? Because this is the Jiang family. When he said this, he glanced at Yao Jia. That glance made Yao Jia's body sway. It didn't affect the progress of the birthday party even if the 3 or 4 girls weren't asked out. But how could Han Susu take it lying down? She couldn't calm her anger. It was all because of that fat girl. It could be said that this was the scene Qin Mo saw when he entered. Han Susu seemed to have seen her savior. Brother Qin, did Brother Jiang have some bad luck to chase us out? Are you kidding me? We are doing it for his own good, helping him deal with his fat pig stepsister. What's wrong with that? Qin Mo listened to the cause and effect without a change in expression. In the end, he said faintly, the fat pig you mentioned is also a member of our Supreme Alliance. What do you mean? Han Susu widened her eyes. Qin Mo's gaze was faint. What I mean is, if I were Jiang Zuo, I would also ask you out. What happened to the manners the Han family taught you? After being disrespected twice in a row, Han Susu was so angry that her chest felt suffocated. Qin Mo didn't look at Han Susu again. Ever since they were young, he had never been interested in her. He was different from Jiang Zuo. Even if he remembered their past relationship, he wouldn't overdo it. That was why Han Susu was afraid of Qin Mo. He was too cold-blooded. After they left, the party went on as usual. Only those who were close to Jiang Zuo had gone upstairs. On such a day, blood couldn't be spilled. Hence, the bandaging had to be left to the brothers. When Qin Mo walked up, Jiang Zuo was still looking in a direction, his expression nonchalant. No one knew what he was thinking. When he saw Qin Mo, he smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. My sister seems to have taken a liking to your brother. How about it? Do you want to get married? Qin Mo looked at him, his expression indifferent. What about the other two? Who knows? Jiang Zuo played with the present in his hands, his gaze cold. You left early, does your team allow dating now? Qin Mo tilted his head and lit a cigarette. It was allowed in the past. Jiang Zuo arched a brow. What about the future? Puppy love isn't good for high school students. Qin Mo puffed out a smoke ring, his handsome side profile noble and indifferent. But can't you control your sister? Jiang Zuo smiled. You're the one who can't control your brother. A big part of his reason for coming here is to save the day. Qin Mo extinguished the cigarette in the ashtray, turned his face, and picked up the phone on the table. His voice was calm. It's getting late. Even if you aren't in the mood, you still have to go down to cut the cake. Jiangzhua arched a brow. Qin Mo's expression was calm. Your attitude determines the attitude of the people around you toward Shui Yaoyao. If you don't mind, forget it. If you do, it's better to be more or less the same. Even if you can't accept Uncle Zhang's remarriage. When did you start to care about other people's matters? Jiangzhua smiled. Chapter 476. As he spoke, he pressed his cell phone and made a call. The person on the other end of the line was none other than Manager Feng, who was drinking with a group of reporters. Qin Mo didn't say much, just a few words. Inform all the team members that in half an hour, there will be a training session at the top floor of the Qin group. Jiangzhua lifted his eyebrows when he heard this. Was Qin Mo using official business for personal gain? At the cocktail party, the reporters saw Feng Yi pause and couldn't help asking, "Boss Feng, what's wrong? Come have another drink." As a manager known as a fox, Feng Yi smiled gently. "Nothing, it's nothing." But in his heart, he was cursing Almighty. Why did you make such a call at this time? I'm going to the washroom. Feng Yi didn't put down his phone, holding it. After he walked out of the room, his expression changed instantly. Almighty, can you stop fooling around? There's only a day and a half off, and you still want everyone to train? At this time, they should have just met their beloved girl, and are preparing to watch a movie of love. If this goes on, our Supreme Alliance will really become a monk team. Qin Mo stuffed one hand into his trouser pocket, his voice unchanged and indifferent. Call and inform. 5 words. Feng Yi lost his temper. But on second thought, it was easier to manage the team members without girlfriends. In fact, wasn't it because of this that he was always here? It was the same in every industry. When some people became famous, they would become chaotic. It wasn't like Feng Yi hadn't encountered any professional team members flirting with fans. Compared to other managers, at least he didn't have to worry about his team members' views on love. Because all of them really had the feeling that they couldn't get married. But it was strange that there were so many fans. If Feng Yi had a deeper understanding, he wouldn't have found it strange. For example, some female juniors fans wanted to give Lin Feng something similar to a love letter on Christmas Eve. Hence, after seeing Yunhu at school, they wanted to ask him for help. Yunhu looked at her and suddenly laughed. It's not fair. It was the first time that the female junior saw Yunhu laugh. In the law enforcement university, Yunhu was almost an unattainable existence. If there wasn't anyone else she could ask for help, the female junior wouldn't have the guts to trouble Yunhu. There was always a kind of person that you wanted to see, but you were afraid to see. At this moment, the junior blushed when she saw Yunhu's smile, her heart thumping furiously. He was really too handsome. That tall and straight figure, and that handsome side profile made one's body heat up uncontrollably. What's unfair? Yunhu lowered his lids, his gaze deep. You're only giving it to Lin Feng and not me? Looking at the man's handsome appearance, the junior felt as if something had pierced through her heart. She immediately said, "This is for you." Yunhu chuckled, his lips turning cold. "Isn't this for Lin Feng? I can make it up to Senior Lin in the future." The junior sister's cheeks were pink. "There are 2 movie tickets in there. Senior brother, you have." Before the beauty could finish her words, a figure jumped out from behind Yunhu and wrapped his arms around his neck. "You're really a brother, waiting for me so late at night." Lin Feng was a slow-witted person. Chapter 477. That girl didn't expect Lin Feng to suddenly appear, and she was embarrassed. Yunhu was calm. "No, she wanted to give you something, but when she saw me, she said she wanted to give it to me, so I accepted it." When Lin Feng heard this, he glanced in the direction of the girl. He had quite an impression of this person. It was said that she was very pure. However, it seemed like that wasn't the case. "Then are you guys making an appointment?" Lin Feng raised his brows. Yunhu took out his phone and showed him the group message. "Training? Group training? At this time?" Lin Feng screamed. Does that fox Feng Yi have any humanity left? However, on second thought, training was good. It saved him the trouble of asking Yunhu to reject girls' dates. He had to remind Yunhu about this when there was no one else around. The girl blushed. Her heart, which had been pounding furiously, stopped when she saw Yunhu's emotionless side profile and Lin Feng's guarded gaze. He suddenly realized that he had done something wrong. He wanted to explain, but found that he couldn't. She originally thought that although Senior Lin was very good, Senior Yun was simply too domineering when compared to Senior Lin. They weren't even on the same level. That was why they decided to change their target at the last minute. However, Senior Yun's final smile was truly filled with mockery. She must have seen wrongly. After all, Senior Yun had just said that it was unfair. But Yunhu's next sentence shattered her fantasies. It's best to give it to the person who should have it. What did that mean? The girl wanted to clarify things. Lin Feng was one step ahead of her, dragging Yunhu away. When there were only two people left on the road, Lin Feng let out a long sigh. Old tiger, let me tell you. You don't have much contact with girls, so you don't understand how scheming they are. Just look at that girl. She chased after me before, and now she's chasing after you. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Such a fickle woman isn't worthy of you. So she chased you first. Yunhu's face was calm, but his tone sounded like he had just realized something. Lin Feng put his hand on his shoulder. I'm lying to your grandson. I definitely didn't mean to slander others. It's not that I don't believe you. Yunhu pretended to be deep in thought. I'm just wondering if she wants to get close to me through you. When Lin Feng heard that, he exclaimed, Damn, that's definitely the case. There's no need for you to think about it anymore. There was a woman who did this to me before. Do you really think that I, Lin Feng, am a fool? Don't worry, in the future, if there's another woman who tries to get close to me, I'll definitely check before coming into contact with her. Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to find a girlfriend? Yunhu asked. Lin Feng laughed. I'm so handsome, I'll find you sooner or later. Is that so? Yunhu's gaze deepened. Then I wish you all the best. This guy clearly had a face that was extremely intelligent. Actually, he wasn't that smart. Yunhu looked at the foggy Jiang city. He had already distanced himself from girls, so this sort of thing would probably be much less frequent in the future. As for a girlfriend, well, he could only think about it. Lin Feng was very serious, and he was prepared to have less contact with girls in the future. On the other hand, Fujio furrowed her pretty eyebrows after receiving the news of the training. Yao Yao tilted her head. What? Nothing, Fujio said, but she replied to Feng Yi's message. Chapter 478. Drank too much? You still have a stomachache? After Manager Feng saw this message, he immediately forwarded it to Qin Mo. The specific content was, Little Spade said you have a stomachache and are not suitable for training. Qin Mo glanced at his phone, his expression indifferent. Tell him that time is of the essence. Even if my stomach hurts, I will participate. Manager Feng's intuition told him that something was wrong. Moreover, Little Spade probably didn't know that the Almighty was the one who wanted everyone to train. Manager Feng simply didn't send a message. Instead, he made a phone call. Almighty, tell me the truth. Why do you want to train today? To prevent puppy love. With that, Qin Mo hung up the phone. It was because of the two people who walked out of the internet cafe. Fujio and Shui Yaoyao didn't see Qin Mo at first. No one knew what they were talking about, but they were both smiling at each other. Until Fujio sensed something and looked up. At the end of the corridor, Qin Mo took out a cigarette from the pack. He tilted his head and lit it. Then, he leaned against the wall and puffed out smoke. He played with the lighter in his hand and looked at them with the corners of his eyes raised. Fujio didn't expect Qin Mo to show up here. Brother Mo, why are you? It's on the way. I came to pick you up. Qin Mo's voice was cold. The car is outside. Fujio saw that his lips were a little pale and thought that his stomach was hurting badly. Are you really in such a hurry to have the training today? MH. Qin Mo replied faintly and glanced at Yao Yao. Otherwise, I wouldn't have interrupted your date. Shui Yao Yao. Why did she feel that Almighty Qin's eyes were filled with coldness just now? Obviously, the young man couldn't sense it, because there was only one thing in Fujio's mind, and that was how to relieve the Almighty's pain. Moreover, Qin Mo would never show his cold side in front of Fujio. Qin Mo knew very well that anyone who was in the rebellious phase of adolescence, they all hated to have their feelings interfered with. Psychology once said that it was often best not to let the other party notice that you were interfering with them. Otherwise, even if there was nothing to begin with, there would still be something because of the rebellion. Qin Mo looked at the youngster's face, his brows furrowing into a deep frown. Why did he choose such a troublesome fellow as his younger brother? Fujio sat in the car and saw that the man didn't look well. She leaned over and asked in a low voice, "Does it hurt?" It wasn't a stomachache, but Qin Mo felt that the current situation was pretty good. He looked at the youngster without retorting or saying a word. His face was thin and his lips were pale. Fujio looked at him and let out a long sigh. She naturally reached out and touched the Almighty's head. She said with a smile, "Don't cry. Move your claws away." Qin Mo laughed in anger. The chauffeur and Shui Yaoyao's back stiffened. Only young Master Jiu dared to be like this with Almighty Qin. They trained together on Christmas Eve. Only Supreme Alliance was like this. However, since they had decided to do the training, everyone was very serious. Fatty even took out the information that he had gathered and shared it. These are the 3 teams that we are going to face next. They are all quite strong. Also, Xiangnan's regional competition has ended. There's no doubt that Xiangnan is number 1 again. Moreover, they didn't send all their main players. It's obvious that they are very strong. Xiangnan. As long as this name was mentioned, the team's atmosphere would turn cold. That was the person they wanted to defeat the most. It had been 3 years. A whole 3 years. Because they had won before, their eyes drooped when they heard this name. It wasn't just Lin Feng and Yun Hu. Even the others were reminding themselves that this was their last chance. Their target was the national champion. Fatty's news probably gave everyone pressure. Fujio watched as everyone started to get busy. Lin Feng's hand speed wasn't fast enough, so he was still practicing. And Feng Shang seemed to be doing something. He actually started to pedal on the World Channel, saying that he wanted to collect diamond shards, probably to make equipment. Christmas Eve. This was basically how Supreme Alliance spent their time. Perhaps this was how it was at this age. Love was never the only thing. Compared to love, it was more enviable to fight side by side with each other. The night sky outside the window was dark and gloomy. The smog in Jiang City had never dissipated. Fujio was the one who drank the most water, because her throat felt uncomfortable. Perhaps it was because of this body. She didn't have this problem in the past. It was said that serious people were the most beautiful. It wasn't just this group of male gamers, even Yao Yao was the same. Everyone's computer screen was lit up. Fujio sat in the middle with her companions on her left and right. She had never been like this before. Because of hackers. She never had friends. Hackers were so mysterious because of their aloofness. They existed, but in reality, they had a different face. Even if they had family and friends, no one would know what these hackers did at night. So in essence, Fujio was lonely. Except for Hoshino. If it wasn't for that time in Tokyo, Fujio wouldn't be hiding things in her heart. On the day of her rebirth, it wasn't that she didn't want to contact Hoshino, but in the end she didn't. People had to look forward. This had always been her principle, compared to helping her do things that couldn't be exposed. Now Hoshino's identity was more beautiful. The clacking sound of the keyboard could be very hypnotic at times. When Fujio raised her eyes again, Lin Feng was already leaning on Yun Hu's shoulder, and he was about to fall asleep. But the Almighty was sitting next to her. She didn't know when he had put on a pair of black-rimmed glasses, but that only made him look extremely handsome and intelligent. Probably because Fujio looked at him for too long. Qin Mo tilted his head. His dark eyes seemed to be smiling. Do I look good? Good. Fujio's peach blossom eyes seemed to be smiling. Brother Mo, looking at you makes me want to take you home. Does your stomach still hurt? Did you take the hot water bag I gave you? Qin Mo also knew that this guy's habit of flirting couldn't be changed. Looking at the young man's concerned expression, he raised his eyebrows and was about to get closer. Feng Yi came over with a big bag of takeaway. He was dressed in a well-ironed suit. Get up, there's supper and porridge to fight against the smog radiation. Porridge to fight against the smog radiation? What's that? Fujio tilted her head and asked Qin Mo. Lin Feng woke up with a start, and his expression was very bad. It's the dark cuisine cooked by Fox Feng himself. Hey, what are you hiding for, Lin Feng? Feng Yi pulled him over. Come, taste my love as a manager. With Lin Feng as a reference, Fujio very cleverly glanced at the porridge in the bag. All she saw was a green sticky substance. After the regional competition, it'll be Supreme Alliance's anniversary celebration. I've already bought tickets to the ski resort and a hotel suite. If we win beautifully, we'll spend the new year at the hot spring villa. There'll also be the masquerade ball that you've been looking forward to. Hearing the words masquerade party, the team members were excited. There was only one person. No one knew what Lin Feng was thinking. He clenched his fist and said fiercely, "This year, I must not draw the worst lot." You need to draw lots for a masquerade ball? Fujio raised her eyebrows. Lin Feng wanted to say something to the youth. Suddenly, Qin Mo's eyes flashed. He pulled the youngster's collar over and said faintly, "Continue practicing your hand speed." Chapter 480. The next day, the regional competition continued. This time, Supreme Alliance's opponent was the former top 3 team in the province, Outyan team. This was the reason why Fatty said they wouldn't have an easy time. At the same time, they were also a friendly team of Yinzhong. In terms of strength, they were indeed no match for Yinzhong team. But everyone knew that the previous match could be won so easily. First, it was because Yinzhong team underestimated their opponent. Second, it was because both Fujio and Qin Mo were on the field. Today's match, those two weren't in the lineup. The 1v1 began. Everyone thought it would be Spadesy, and even the shoutcaster thought that Supreme Alliance should continue to win with the momentum of the previous match. Unexpectedly, it was Yin Wuyao who came for the 1v1. Outyan saw this and laughed coldly. What do you mean? Are you looking down on us? He thinks he's great just because he beat Yinzhong team. Monkey, let these people know that our Outyan team isn't someone they can treat like this. It's ridiculous for an old general to take the lead. No problem, it's a piece of cake to deal with this uncle. Just like what Feng Shang had been worried about, this match wasn't going to be easy. Yin Wuyao didn't make any progress other than taking a kill in the first match. Fujio looked up at the time on the screen and frowned. Uncle, we have to end this match as soon as possible. Because the opponent was an assassin-type player who was good at sneak attacks and fast, the longer the match dragged on, the harder it would be for Yin Wuyao. Fujio's speculation was verified when Yin Wuyao lost his first life. The opponent was good at stealing towers and attacking all the way. In order not to end the match early, Yin Wuyao could only return to the city to heal. That kind of situation made people's hearts ache. Sometimes, the people in the match couldn't see it as clearly as the bystanders. Was Supreme Alliance really going to lose this time? Just as people were thinking about this, Yin Wuyao jumped over the tower and killed his opponent, returning to the city with low HP. Fujio saw this and her eyes lit up. Uncle realized it. Realized what? Feng Shang didn't understand. But it was obvious that Yin Wuyao's fighting style was different. He didn't attack the tower, but hid in the bushes and began to hunt. Because his opponent was fast, Yin Wuyao first stunned him, then killed him, turning the situation around. This 1v1 match was without a doubt the longest one of them all. In the end, Yin Wuyao's HP was dangerously low. His opponent had used up his last life. If they were any later, Supreme Alliance's city would have fallen. It could only be said that it was really hard to tell who would win and who would lose in this competition. But according to the rules, Supreme Alliance won. Yin Wuyao removed his headphones and walked towards his teammates. Fujio glanced sideways and passed him a cigarette. Thanks for your hard work. It's important to have a good start. Yin Wuyao took the cigarette but didn't light it. He held it in his mouth. I wish I was as young as you guys. Fujio laughed and said, there are benefits to being old. For example, you have rich experience and can adapt to changing situations. I believe this is why the Almighty asked you to fight the 1v1. With that, In Wuyao glanced at Qin Mo, his voice low. We have a good captain. Yes, we have a good captain. He wasn't like the other teams, who looked down on veterans and looked down on rookies. He gave everyone enough trust. He treated his teammates equally. This was the Almighty. Chapter 481. With In Wuyao leading the way, no matter how difficult the following matches were, no one was worried. He fought steadily without underestimating his opponent or having stage fright. The shoutcaster added, North of In Mountain's victory is very important. With his persistence, Supreme Alliance's aura has returned. That's right. Another shoutcaster laughed. It seems like even an old general has to meet a captain who knows how to use people. Everyone understood. Supreme Alliance's order of appearance had always been arranged by Qin Mo. Someone once said that when Qin Mo wasn't in the preparation area, he was Supreme Alliance's coach. But when he wore the headphones and operated the computer, it was another role. Supreme Alliance was able to keep their composure. A large part of the reason was because the person sitting there was Qin Mo. Next was the 2v2. Shui Yaorao didn't even know how she moved the mouse. All she wanted was to kill another person or attack another defense tower. When it was over, she realized that she had really won. Her fingers were still trembling, and her heart was still beating. For the first time, without Highness Jio's help, she won. In the distance, Fujio, who was in the audience seats, curved her lips into a smile and mouthed, "Beautiful." Perhaps, this was what they were after with their disdainful and mocking gazes. Esports taught us to be brave. And friends taught us to trust. The celebratory atmosphere had never been so intense. As the manager, Feng Yi watched this scene with a smile. Except for his own brother Feng Shang. What he saw was more about that group of guys getting along. Who would have thought? Some of them didn't even know what esports was a month ago. But now, every single one of them was a trustworthy player. Perhaps this year, they could really win the national championship. Brother. Feng Shang ran over with a flushed face. Did you see that? I won. Feng Yi ruffled his hair. I saw it. Not bad. Take advantage of this momentum and continue. Okay. His eyes were filled with yearning, as if he could see the future shining. Fujio hit the back of the chair with one hand, the corner of her mouth lifted. Just as she was about to speak, she suddenly looked to the left. Qin Mo lifted his brows. What? Nothing. Fujio's eyes were still on the emergency exit. Was she seeing things? How could that person be here? Little Spade, why are you still sitting there? Hurry up and come down to celebrate. Lin Feng interrupted Fujio's thoughts. Fujio curled her lips up into a smile. She held onto the railing with one hand and jumped up. Her action was so cool that the surrounding girls almost fainted. Lin Feng was stunned and gave him a thumbs up. Good skills. Qin Mo glanced over, and then looked towards the emergency exit. It was empty. There was nothing there. What was this guy looking at just now? The regional competition lasted for 5 consecutive days. As a dark horse, Supreme Alliance won all the way. This move was a slap in the face to the analysts who had made predictions on Weibo. But none of this mattered to Fujio. The key was to draw lots for the masquerade ball. Come on. You should wish yourself good luck first. Lin Feng held a bamboo tube with a solemn expression. The bamboo tube was filled with wooden sticks. Fujio thought to herself that it was just a masquerade party, and she didn't need to wish him good luck. She was so handsome that she could play any role, right? Lin Feng said meaningfully. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Fujio didn't care. She picked the one in the middle with a faint smile. Then she flipped it over. There were only 2 words on it. Cross-dressing, asterisk 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 aside, no charge beyond 1,000 words. It's been 3.5 months since I started writing. Thank you, beauties, for accompanying me for so long. I've encountered many things during this period, such as plagiarism, reposting, and other infringements, as well as the incomprehension in the comments section. I'm lucky to have you all with me all the way. Chapter 482. Female cross-dressing? How could there be such a strange word? Fujio raised her eyebrows heavily. feeling that there was something wrong with her eyes. Wrong draw, I'll draw again. What do you mean wrong draw? It's this one. Lin Feng smiled widely. Little Spade, you're so lucky. In the past, your brother was always the luckiest. This year, it's your turn. What did he mean? Was it really cross-dressing? Fujio's mouth froze. What kind of masquerade ball would require people to wear cross-dressing? My condolences. Lin Feng seemed to see himself in the past. He reached out his left hand and patted Fujio's shoulder. Child, you're still young. But think about it. How many men have the chance to wear cross-dressing, especially so openly? Be happy. Fujio looked sideways. Master Lin. Go ahead. Fujio chuckled. When you're comforting me, can you keep your molars in first? It's too obvious that you're gloating. Lin Feng was still laughing, not caring about what Fujio said. After comforting her, he jumped over to the team members, and his handsome face was full of joy. Guess. What did Little Spade draw? Shui Yaoyao held her face, and her eyes were full of yearning. Vampire aristocracy? With Highness Jiu's skin tone and silver hair, if she wore a 19th century evening gown, she would definitely amaze everyone. Feng Shang was also trying hard to think. Demon Deacon? No, neither. Lin Feng shook his finger. Guess again. Yin Hu walked over at this time, and his voice was normal. Seeing how happy you are, could it be that Little Spade drew the lot you drew last year? Dehu, you're so smart. Lin Feng pointed at him and said in a loud voice, That's right, it's that lucky draw cross-dressing. Cross-dressing. In an instant, not only the old team members but also Feng Shang and Yin Wuyao. Both Feng Shang and Yin Wuyao looked in Fujio's direction immediately. He wanted to smoke a cigarette, but because he was too shocked, he did not even hold the cigarette in his mouth and dropped it on the ground. There was not a single person who wasn't shocked. Fujio still wanted to say something, but when she looked up, she saw that the Almighty had just finished dealing with the company's matters, and was standing in front of the door in a suit. His body was excessively slender, and he probably heard Lin Feng's words. He leaned against the wall, raised his eyebrows at Fujio, and smiled faintly. Cross-dressing? Fujio wanted to open her mouth again. Lin Feng interrupted her decisively. Little Spade, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to find excuses, like you're not feeling well, you have something to do tomorrow, or your stomach hurts. I used these excuses last year. Just accept your fate. Our brothers won't laugh at you. Fujio. Can't you be more expressive when you say that? However, this time, Lin Feng blocked all the ways she could use to escape. She had to think of a way to reject this alternative masquerade party. But the Almighty didn't give the young man a chance. His gaze was indifferent. Tomorrow, everyone must attend as requested. If you don't come, you'll have to bear the consequences. Captain is right. Attend as requested. Lin Feng patted Fujio's shoulder again. Fujio finally experienced the feeling that the Almighty had when he wanted to throw someone out of the window. Shui Yaoyao stood at the side, and her eyes were full of worry. Cross-dressing was really dangerous for Highness Jiu. Chapter 483. Lin Feng blocked with his hand. Yaoyao, you can't do that. Our Supreme Alliance has rules. You have to follow whatever you draw, right, Captain? Hearing that, Fujio looked at Qin Emo with a serious look, which meant, Almighty, it's time to show your brother's true colors. Qin Emo looked at the young man for a moment. Just when Fujio thought things would change for the better, the man smiled. The man smiled, looking especially handsome. Yes. Fujio. What happened to Brother Khan? Qin Emo slowly took in the youngster's gloomy expression, then looked at Shui Yaoyao, who was anxious to help the youngster out. His original intention of letting the youngster off the hook was reduced by a lot. He took a step forward, his voice calm but oppressive. Perform well, and I'll personally pick you up tomorrow. Don't even think about running away, understand? Did he mean that she had to participate? Fujio raised her eyebrows. Just in case, she gave him a heads up first. You can choose not to run away, but Brother Mo, let me tell you, I'm not like Lin Feng. I've never had the experience of dressing up as a girl. Don't worry, I won't despise you. Qin Mo's tone made Fujio realize that she couldn't avoid dressing up as a girl. Lin Feng waited for Qin Mo to finish and immediately shouted, "Little Spade, I've only done it twice, okay? 2 times isn't considered experience." Fujio said casually, "No wonder you're the team beauty." As a man who thought he was, Lin Feng touched his heart, calmed down, and smiled handsomely. "Little Spade, I can totally understand why you don't like everyone. That's how I felt back then. Sai, I understand how unpleasant it is for a man to be forced to be a prostitute, no, to be forced to be a woman. But I still need to provide you with some props." "What props?" Fujio unwrapped a lollipop and held it in her mouth casually. "Aren't they just costumes?" Lin Feng looked at her as if she had never experienced the big world. He lowered his voice and said, "Some props are more important than costumes." Fujio said casually. Now there were only 2 words in her mind. Cross-dressing, cross-dressing. Why would she care about props? "Hey, don't know." Lin Feng lowered his head. "Give me your address. I'll get someone to send the props to your house. Listen to Senior, at this masquerade ball, the more you look like yourself, the less people will be able to recognize you. The chances of losing face will also be lower." Fujio chuckled. "Brother Lin, who doesn't know that I'm going to dress up as a girl after your announcement? The members of the team don't count. The main thing is that there will be some fans attending the masquerade ball." Lin Feng leaned over. "Don't say that I don't want to teach you. When the time comes, just insist that you're a fan, understand? So it could be like this." It seemed like her brother Lin was also someone who could provide ideas at times. Furthermore, it was a masquerade ball, and they could wear masks. Even if he wore women's clothing, he could still hide it. The more Fujio thought about it, the more her smile deepened. Brother Lin is indeed reliable. This is a great idea. Of course, who is your brother Lin? Lin Feng also looks good when he's proud. That's why these props are especially important. Whether or not a disguise depends entirely on them. What are these props referring to? Fujio had a bad feeling about this. Chapter 484. 34D. Collagen Water Ball. Chest. When these words were put together, anyone could guess what they meant. Fujio's fingers paused. Then, she jumped down from the wooden table and sucked on her lollipop, looking like a handsome hedonist. "Brother Lin, I just want to ask you one thing. When you bought these things, did no one look at you as a pervert?" Lin Feng's face turned red as he denied. Yunhu said lightly, "No, but Uncle and Auntie found out and thought he had a fetish for cross-dressing." Fujio. That was worse than being thought of as a pervert. With this relationship, Fujio made a wise choice. "I refuse to accept these props." "Refuse?" Lin Feng smiled when he heard that. "Little Spade, you can't do this. Where's your sincerity in cross-dressing? Don't try to fool us with some pants. After the ball ends tomorrow, we have to send photos to the team group. There's a small gathering after midnight. You can't wear something that doesn't pass." Fujio smiled after hearing that. "Don't worry, I'll definitely pass. Not to mention that she was a woman, she was good at disguising. Since it was a masquerade ball, it wasn't a problem for her." Qin Mo had been on the phone. Now that he was done, he glanced at the youngster and raised his eyebrows. So confident? He thought that this guy would beg him. This way, he could make some corresponding conditions such as staying away from girls, especially Shui Yao Yao, and keeping an appropriate distance. But it turned out that a certain someone was not enlightened in some aspects. He was quite happy when someone asked to change the lot. He didn't think of asking him for help. Since that was the case, he wanted to see how a certain someone would hide in cross-dressing. At that time, Qin Mo didn't realize that he was like this because he cared. But every time he saw Fujio and Shui Yao Yao looking at each other, his eyes would turn cold. Night fell, and fog started to form in Jiang City again. It was better in the city. Once they were out of the city, in the direction of the high-speed rail station, people were walking in a haze. Everyone was wearing masks, as if they were filming a Resident Evil movie. Among them stood a tall and slender figure. He was the only one who wasn't wearing a mask, so he was particularly eye-catching. His handsome facial features were exposed outside. So the people who got on the bus couldn't help but take another look at him. That person was holding a phone with one hand, as if he was talking on the phone. His voice could be vaguely heard. So she was from Tokyo. What a good temperament. Haven't you been learning languages recently? Can you understand what he is saying? Probably. He seems to have said that he's going to stay here for a while, and won't be going back for a while. He said that he has something to do and will meet here? What are you talking about? Did you hear wrong? No, that's what he said. And it sounds like he's looking for someone, huh? Wait, where's the handsome guy? The contralto voice was still echoing in his ears, but Hoshino tossed it further and further away until he couldn't hear it anymore. That's right, that figure was Hoshino. Chapter 485. Hoshino narrowed his eyes. No matter what, he still felt that all the verified accounts posting the same message for no reason was very similar to Z's style. And he had already inquired about the hackers in China. So far, no organization had taken responsibility for this, which meant that they didn't do it. As a result, his suspicions deepened. You could say that he was lying to himself, or that he was delusional, but this definitely had something to do with Z. But where on earth was that person? Lincheng? Baocheng? Jincheng? Or Jiang City? A province in China was bigger than the capital of Tokyo, not to mention such a densely populated city. It wasn't easy to find one person. So far, he only had one clue, and that was that Z was very likely in the Eastport circle. Otherwise, she wouldn't have intervened in this matter. So he wouldn't give up. Maybe he should go to the national competition. It shouldn't be long. Hoshino looked up at the foggy city. On the way from the Qin group to the Fu family's house, Shui Yaoyao didn't go home immediately. Instead, she walked with Fujio. Your Highness Jio, are you really going to dress as a girl? Will it be bad for you? Shui Yaoyao's worries weren't unreasonable. After all, Fujio still had secrets to keep. Fujio had one hand in her pocket. She was smiling, but she looked very cunning. It's not good, but since it's a masquerade ball, it won't be bad to the point of danger. I'll send you a message, and you can cover for me. Lin Feng said a lot. As long as you dress up well, it will save a lot of trouble. What do you need me to do? Shui Yaoyao asked nervously. Fujio rubbed her chin and said, try to divert everyone's attention. You can bring a friend with a similar figure. He should be able to buy some time for me. We're not going together? Shui Yaoyao didn't understand. Won't that help you? How could she cover for him if they were too far away? Fujio smiled faintly, and her eyes sparkled. She said slowly, as if this wasn't the first time she had done something like this. No, disguise is all about the first impression. Everyone in the team will definitely think that I will go with you. After all, this is my first time wearing women's clothes. No man will look natural in women's clothes for the first time, so he will definitely find a companion. Lin Feng was probably recognized because he was with Yin Hu everywhere he went in the past. That's why we'll enter separately and split up the time. The person you brought with you should be studied by them for a while. Shui Yaoyao didn't know if it was an illusion, but she felt that when the word disguise was mentioned, the young man in the night looked like a vampire noble who had just woken up from the darkness. He was mysterious and evil, his side profile was handsome and fair, and even his whole body was covered with a darkness that could make people fall. It was as if the young man was born this way. On the contrary, she usually hid far too many things. Why do I have such a feeling? Shui Yaoyao looked at Fujio in front of her in a daze. She didn't know what to say. The young man noticed her gaze. He turned his head and smiled, which was as warm as the spring sun. Chapter 486. But there was one thing that was rather strange. Highness Jio seemed to be very good at disguising himself. Even some people could guess what they were thinking. This was too smart. Could a hacker be this smart? Fujio knew that Shui Yaoyao was confused, but she didn't plan to say anything. After the National League ended, the Fu family would undergo another change of ownership. When that time came, she would definitely return to the Fifth Avenue after settling everything here. It was not suitable for anyone to know about her past. She wasn't sure if it was because of the shadow she saw today, but Fujio was thinking too much about the past. She was different from everyone else in the Supreme Alliance, and she couldn't rely on her game to support herself. She had her own beliefs, and that belief could only continue after she regained her identity as a hacker. Therefore, she would leave this place sooner or later. Even though he was reluctant, he had to do what he had to do. Fujio looked in Shui Yaoyao's direction again, reached out her hand, and rubbed her head with a smile. Don't worry, it's just women's clothing. It's not like I've never worn it before. What about Almighty Qin? Shui Yaoyao said in a low voice. I feel that Almighty Qin's observation skills are too strong. Fujio thought to herself that he was more than just strong. He was not just a little bit stronger. Tomorrow, I'll find an excuse to go there first. As long as you help me stall for time, I'll send a few pictures to the team chat. If we don't meet face to face, it should be much less dangerous. Fujio's analysis was right. At this time, the entire team was thinking about how to catch her tomorrow. With Lin Feng leading the way, he said, I have experience doing this. When the time comes, you must keep an eye on Sister Yao Yao. Those two have a good relationship, so they will definitely appear together. Sister Yao Yao is easy to recognize, understand? Understood. Every member of the team was in high spirits. Every year at the New Year's Eve ball, they looked forward to this moment the most. Yinhu didn't say anything, but he found it strange. Why did Little Spade pick the cross-dressing one out of so many? He reached for the bamboo tube on Lin Feng's table and casually took one. There were only 2 words written on the wooden stick, women's clothing. He smoked another one. Still no. Yinhu didn't take the 3rd one. Instead, he turned to Lin Feng. Who gave you this bamboo tube? It wasn't that he didn't suspect Lin Feng, but he didn't think Lin Feng was smart enough to do such a thing. As expected, Lin Feng was still laughing. Why? Oh, it's a bamboo tube. Captain gave it to me after the draw. Yinhu instantly understood. There were only 3 words in his mind. No wonder. He lifted his eyes and looked at the figure who was still smoking. Their captain had a calm expression on his face, as if he didn't care at all that someone knew that he had done something to the bamboo tube. It had to be said that the captain's shamelessness was growing with each passing year. Subsequently, Qin walked over and tossed a cigarette to Yinhu. The two of them found a quiet place and puffed out smoke rings. Qinmo's voice was calm and emotionless. You should keep the bamboo tube to yourself. Yinhu had always been a man of few words, but at this moment he couldn't help but ask, Captain, do you want to see Spade cross-dressing? If that was the case, it wasn't impossible for Spade to chase after someone. No. Qin flicked the cigarette butt and said slowly, I just thought that guy would come and beg me. Chapter 487. Lin Feng was still shouting over there. Oh yes, I have to hurry home and pack the props for Little Spade. I want to see it as a gift for him as soon as he comes tomorrow. The New Year's masquerade. Everyone seemed to be looking forward to it. Besides the members of the team, there were also some fans online. There weren't many opportunities to get such a chance. Only their true fans would be invited to the banquet. And all the expenses of the ball would be provided by the Qin group. As long as you were there, you could celebrate the new year with your esports idol. This had always been a special case for the Qin group. Of course, there would be live broadcasts on online platforms. This was good for the development of the Supreme Alliance, and was also a benefit for the fans. Everyone was happy to see it. But there was one thing. Almighty Qin might not necessarily appear at the masquerade. After all, he had to attend many business meetings on New Year's Eve. But even this couldn't stop the enthusiasm of the fans who wanted to participate in this activity. He might not necessarily appear, but there was still a chance. Moreover, someone said that even if Almighty Qin didn't appear, there was still Big Spade. So the atmosphere of online registration was unusually high. When the deadline ended at midnight, the number of registrations had exceeded 1 million. But not everyone could come to the scene. They also had to be screened. Manager Feng had been busy dealing with this matter. How could Han Susu and her group miss such a ball? She first spent a lot of money, but because she didn't pay attention to the team, she wasn't selected. In the end, She found Feng Yi through her brother and asked for 3 tickets. Feng Yi politely refused at first, but seeing that Han Susu's attitude was more extreme, he didn't want to agitate her because of these 2 tickets. Han Susu had been spoiled since she was young and couldn't tolerate being rejected. In her impression, if she spent money, the other party should agree and like her. Han Susu was still a student. It wasn't that students weren't good. It was just that some were more troublesome than adults when faced with it. Because they could turn from a fan to an anti-fan at any time. Not a fan to a fan. And people like Han Susu hadn't fully matured their values. Feng Yi didn't say much to her. Instead, he said to her brother, "Young Master Han, you know that our ball is a celebration for the Supreme Alliance. We want to celebrate the new year with our fans. If possible, please be quiet when Miss Han arrives." Feng Yi's attitude had always been gentle, but those words made Han Susu's brother blush. What his sister had been doing recently was indeed a little out of line. "Don't worry, I'll go with her." "That's good. Don't go overboard. It's not the right time for Supreme Alliance to start a feud." Han Susu didn't realize her own problem. After leaving the Qin group club, she sneered. Although the Feng family isn't bad, it's still a business. "Brother, why are you so polite to Feng Yi? He's just a worker for Brother Qin." Han Susu's brother once again wondered why he had such a sister. He took a deep breath and said, "Susu, if you still think this way, give me the ticket. You don't have to go to the masquerade ball." Chapter 488. Han Feng knew his sister's personality. She cared about her reputation, and if she didn't keep her promise to her friends, she would definitely go and bother their parents. So he handed the ticket over and said in a low voice, "Be a good girl and don't cause trouble." Got it, got it. I'm going to see my idol. I'm so happy. How could I cause trouble?" After Han Susu got the ticket, she smiled from ear to ear. "My 2 friends like Brother Qin very much, so there won't be any problems." Han Feng thought about it carefully and agreed. A masquerade ball, with masks on their faces, and everyone celebrating the new year together, there wouldn't be any problems. "Alright, let's stop talking. I'm going to inform our friends, and let them think about how to dress up more beautifully tomorrow." Han Susu was still young, so she always had endless enthusiasm for these things. The Han family only had 1 daughter, so of course they would let her have her way. Han Feng only called the bodyguards over, and told them to keep an eye on Miss tomorrow night. The darkness of the night grew thicker. After Fujio got home, she threw her school bag, and went straight to the basement of the villa. There was a side door there. It had only appeared in the Fu family after she was reborn. She had basically made this thing herself. Although it took a long time, at least it could be considered a temporary secret room. The door didn't have a handle, so to push it open one needed to turn the dim light on the side. The secret room wasn't big, but it had everything. There were 3 computers in it, each with high specs. There was only 1 keyboard, but it was connected to an LCD monitor. Aside from these, there was a row of skateboards and some hats. Fujio walked in with 1 hand in her pocket, as if she was back home. She tapped on the keyboard. A letter appeared on the screen immediately, Z. As the LCD monitor lit up, all the lights in the room lit up. At this moment, people could see clearly that there was a rack in the innermost part of the room. There were all kinds of uniforms hanging on the rack. There were men's clothes, women's clothes, trousers, and long skirts. They even had janitorial uniforms and express delivery uniforms. Fujio had a lollipop in her mouth. She skated over on the skateboard and stopped in front of the rack. "Masquerade ball? Black it is then." The youngster raised her eyebrows, and with a flick of her finger, a pure black muslin skirt was pulled out by her. Since she wasn't wearing it, she couldn't even make out the style of the dress. She could only vaguely make out the material. After picking out the clothes, Fujio bent over and pressed some kind of mechanism. The wooden board above her head popped out with a bang. It was a small hidden compartment with more than a dozen mirrors inside. There were sunglasses, myopia glasses, and even cosmetic contact lenses. Apart from these, there were also rows of wigs. The wig was long and short, black and yellow, and it was very smooth and lifelike. Normal people wouldn't have these things in their homes. But Fujio was different. She is a hacker. In essence, she had never changed. The identity of a high school student on the surface was sometimes easier for her to hide. When she knew that she had to deal with Fu Zhongyi and the mistress, she had been preparing everything. This was so that when they encountered certain cases, they could take action whenever they wanted. It was just that he didn't expect. After his rebirth, the first time he used these things was for a masquerade ball? Fujio shook her head and smiled. That lazy look of hers would probably make the girls feel that she was super cool. She randomly picked out a wig and a bracelet, and left the secret room with the black skirt. Chapter 489. 9 o'clock. The light in Jiang City was still covered by layers of haze. Chen Xiaodong's roar came from downstairs. What is this? What are these? Young master. Fujio was indeed woken up by her little butler. After she opened her eyes, she was still yawning. Her silver hair was messy, which only made her look sexy. And Chen Xiaodong quickly came back to his senses and put the things in front of the young man. He said earnestly, "Young man, I've never given you any advice on how you've played in the past. But today, I'm going to say something. What are these?" "How would I know?" Fujio covered herself with the blanket and wanted to sleep again. Chen Xiaodong was very anxious. "The recipient is you. Fortunately, I signed for it. What if Madam saw it? She will definitely be sad that she raised young master like this." Fujio continued to yawn. She changed her posture to block out some of the noise. Chen Xiaodong let out a long sigh, hugged the cardboard box, and sat on the chair next to him. "Young master, I know you won't like what I'm saying, and I know what you're thinking. For Almighty Qin, you're even playing your least favorite game so well, so deep down, you must really wish you were a girl. It's not easy for gay guys like you to walk down the road, but you can't be like this. Where did you buy such a dirty thing?" "Dirty?" Fujio finally opened her eyes. She reached out and rubbed her silver hair. Finally, she raised her eyebrows at Chen Xiaodong, looking like a handsome man who woke up early in the morning. "Give it to me first, let me see. You want to inspect the goods?" Chen Xiaodong said angrily. "Although it's very realistic, I have to give it a bad review regardless of whether it's good or bad. Tell me, which Taobao shop did you buy it from? I'm going to report it." Fujio held the side of her face and said faintly, "I'll say it again, hand it over." Seeing his young master like this, Chen Xiaodong felt goosebumps all over his body. He stretched out his paw and handed the box over. Fujio frowned as soon as she saw what was inside. "Young master." Chen Xiaodong still wanted to say something. Fujio lifted the quilt and stood up. "Lin Feng bought it, so I just accepted it for him." "Really?" Chen Xiaodong was very doubtful. Fujio raised her eyebrows. "Do you want me to call Lin Feng and ask him? Then it's true." Chen Xiaodong shook his head. "I didn't expect Linda to have such a hobby." Fujio smiled faintly. "Keep it to yourself. Don't tell anyone else. Don't worry." Chen Xiaodong held it in. "I'll try not to say anything." Fujio didn't believe that he wouldn't say anything. In less than a day, Number 1 Middle School's Tieba forum would be filled with Xiao Dongzi's gossip posts. Therefore, from a certain perspective, Fujio did it on purpose. Brother Lin wanted to trick her, and she tricked him in the end. This was also an act of kindness on her part. "Wait." Chen Xiaodong's eyes were sharp. "Young man, what's up with that black gauze dress on your chair? And the wigs?" Fujio turned around and let out a long sigh. "I didn't want to talk about this." "Secret." Chen Xiaodong pricked up his ears and repeated, "I promise I won't tell anyone." Chapter 490. Hearing that, Chen Xiaodong murmured, "Linda's taste is so heavy. Only Big Spade would yield to a perfect trap." Chen Xiaodong put down the wooden box immediately. "Young master, get up quickly. Breakfast is ready. It's on the table. I'll go down first." The feeling of wanting to share a secret with a good friend was uncontrollable. He swore that he would only tell his good friend, and no one else. Fujio knew what Chen Xiaodong was going to do when she saw him like that. She curled her lips and smiled slowly. Then she tilted her head and looked at the pure black chiffon dress with her deep eyes. Her slender fingers slowly unbuttoned her white shirt, revealing her fair skin and the layers of bandages wrapped around her chest. If Chin Emo saw her like this, he would definitely not treat this person as his little brother anymore. But how could Fujio expose herself so easily? She looked tall and slender before. After removing all the bandages, her waist was very slim, revealing a very beautiful waistline, especially with a pair of long legs. Fair, tall, and green like jade. That kind of figure, not only men, but also women would like it. Your Highness Jio, are you there? A voice came from outside the door. Fujio heard it was Shui Yaoyao and said in a lazy voice, "Come in." She casually draped something over her body and sat on the wooden chair. Opposite the wooden chair was a vanity mirror. The two of them had agreed yesterday that Shui Yaoyao would come to the Fu house first today to create the illusion that the person beside her was Fujio. Shui Yaoyao had imagined His Highness Jio's female appearance countless times, but after seeing it with her own eyes, those imaginations were instantly destroyed, because she realized that no matter how she imagined it, it was not as stunning as what she saw. The woman sitting on the wooden chair stepped on the wooden floor with her bare feet. That posture was very lazy, but her legs were too beautiful. Especially her. She didn't seem to be wearing any clothes underneath. She was just wearing a dark chiffon, and her fair back was exposed. Her curves were so beautiful that one could only think of one word, vixen. Yes. Like a fairy walking out of the darkness. Every inch of her body was different from that of a mortal, white like porcelain. Ever since Fujio supported her face with one hand and let Shui Yaoyao close the door, it became unstoppable. Shui Yaoyao wanted to say that even if Almighty Qin saw her like this, he probably wouldn't be angry that she was hiding a secret. But on second thought, Almighty Qin seemed to be too resistant to beauty and didn't like being lied to. She wasn't sure if Almighty Qin would be angry, but there was one thing. Her Highness Jio was already so beautiful just by looking like this. If she were to wear women's clothes, Yaoyao chuckled. So beautiful. Fujio turned her eyes to the side, and her languid elegance was laced with indifference. It's all right. After all, I'm too handsome, so don't feel inferior. Shui Yaoyao couldn't help but want to laugh. Sure enough, no matter what Highness Jio changed into, he was still Highness Jio. After locking the door, come over and sit down. There's something for you beside the chair. Take it out and have a look. Fujio raised her eyebrows at Shui Yaoyao. Chapter 491. This is a New Year's gift. Fujio chuckled. She sat lazily in the veil. How can a girl attend a masquerade party without a long dress? You've lost a lot of weight these days, so white suits you very well. Although Shui Yaoyao hadn't seen many expensive things, she could tell from the fabric that the dress wasn't cheap. His Highness Jio always seemed to be like this. He was more thoughtful than anyone else. He brought more warmth to others than anyone else. Thank you. Shui Yaoyao put away the gift box with a big smile on her face. She thought that it was a blessing to have met this person in her lifetime. Fujio was still supporting the side of her face with a wicked smile. She was as beautiful as ever. The masquerade party would start at 6:30 p.m. to prevent the youngster from escaping. After the shareholders' meeting at 2 p.m., Qin Mo took out his phone, unlocked the screen, and dialed someone's number. It was a pity that no one picked up the first call. Another half an hour passed. Qin Mo dialed the second number. This time, someone picked up the call. A female voice came through. Is this Almighty Qin? Qin Mo's fingers paused when he heard that voice. Shui Yaoyao. It's me. Shui Yaoyao didn't understand why her scalp would go numb every time she faced Almighty Qin. Qin Mo's eyes dimmed. He gestured to Secretary Liang, who was about to sign the document, to wait. Then he walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and said in a low voice, "Let Fujio answer the phone." Even through the phone, Shui Yaoyao could tell that Almighty Qin wasn't in a good mood. His Highness Jio is taking a shower, so he asked me to answer it for him. Qin Mo's dark eyes turned colder, and even his voice lost all warmth. Where are you? Taking a shower at this time? Hotel? thinking of the word hotel. Qin Mo's hand almost crumpled the document in his hand. At Fu's house, Shui Yaorao explained, it's the first time His Highness Jiao wears women's clothes, so there are many things he doesn't understand. We have to dress up later. It was His Highness Jiao's idea for her to answer the phone. She wanted everyone and Almighty Qin to have the illusion that they would always be together. On the top floor of the Qin group, Secretary Liang looked at the tall and straight figure in front of him and felt the chill slowly dissipate. He couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. The hostility emitted by the CEO just now was really frightening. It was as if he would destroy this office in the next second if he got any news. No one knew what happened to make the CEO like this. Fortunately, he was feeling better now. However, it was only a little better. There wasn't a hint of a smile in Qin Mo's eyes. After he showers, get him to call me back. All right. Shui Yaorao hung up the phone, patted her chest, and said to the young man sitting in front of her, talking to the Almighty is too stressful. Fu Jiao smiled faintly. You'll get used to it. Call your friends over. You guys go first and leave through my side. When I'm done, we'll leave from the back. Then the Almighty's phone number. Shui Yaoyao reminded. Fu Jiao looked up at the time. I'll be back in 10 minutes. In the president's office, Qin Mo glanced at the reflection of the traffic outside the window. His thin lips curled up and he smiled coldly. Shower. Chapter 492. Qin Mo's beautiful eyebrows furrowed. Coldness, forbearance, impatience. And the suffocating feeling in his heart made him want to pull off his tie subconsciously. However, it was the end of the year. All the big companies were really busy. Even though it was New Year's Eve, some ordinary employees had holidays. The real CEO of a company had the most social engagements at this time. The higher the position, the more so. Secretary Liang was afraid that his CEO's mood would sink further, so he immediately said, CEO Qin, you have an appointment to attend. Cancel it. Two very indifferent words. Qin Mo reached out and picked up the jacket on the back of the chair. Secretary Liang said in a low voice, I can't cancel it, it's the Yin family. Qin Mo paused, gradually recovering his composure. My grandfather is back? Yes, he's back for the new year. He wants you to go over. Many people knew that Qin Mo was a young master from the military, but they didn't know that he was the Yin family's only grandson. The Yin family in the world really controlled a lot of economic lifelines. And the old man didn't come back often. Qin Mo glanced at his phone again. Go to the Yin family. Yes. Time passed slowly. Qin Mo received a call from the youngster. But he was about to hang up after saying a few words with a chuckle. Qin Mo sat in the back seat of the Hummer, his eyes indifferent. When did you get into the habit of letting others answer your phone for you? I can't help it, I was busy just now. Fu Jiao gave a half-truth. Qin Mo chuckled, not at all happy. He said in a pleasant voice, busy taking a shower? If you are so willing to take a shower in front of others, I'll let you take a shower in front of me later, understand? Fu Jiao imagined that scene and said decisively, I'm actually very conservative. I can see that. You confess to others so easily, you are indeed very conservative. Fu Jiao. Almighty, isn't this already over? He listened to the pause on the other side of the phone. Qin Mo could also imagine the youngster's slightly depressed expression. The coldness on his thin lips finally dissipated a little, and he began to talk business. I'll pick you up after 6, I have something to do here. Speaking of this, if Brother Mo is busy, you don't have to pick me up. I'll go with Yao Yao. Fu Jiao sat in front of the floor-to-ceiling window with her slender legs crossed. The sunlight shone on her face, and it was a beautiful scene. Qin Mo didn't know that the person on the other side of the phone was already dressed as a girl. After hearing the youngster's words, his gaze turned colder. Up to you. After saying these 3 words, Qin Mo hung up. No. Not so much that he hung up the phone. It would be more accurate to say that he just threw his phone aside. That kind of strength, even in the car, made quite a lot of noise. Secretary Liang was driving in the front and didn't dare to look back. President Qin's behavior was even more unusual than before. Fu Jiu looked at her phone in confusion. The Almighty was angry? Indeed, he should be angry. The Almighty must be very busy today. Yet he was still thinking of picking her up. He probably didn't want her to face so many gazes alone. But she had broken his promise. Fu Jiu touched the bridge of her nose. However, being angry now was just a small matter. If they saw the Almighty and the Almighty sensed something, at that time, the Almighty would get angry. It definitely wouldn't be that easy. Your Highness Jiu, my friend is here. Shui Yaoyao walked in again. She's downstairs. Fu Jiu jumped down from the balcony and handed her another set of clothes. Let your friend wear this. Spray her hair silver. Chapter 493. For in the afternoon. The Yin family's villa. In a place like Jiang City where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold, there were very few areas with private swimming pools. Beside the swimming pool was a large empty space with a small personal computer parked inside. There seemed to be more people speaking English than Chinese here. The red carpet was spread in the hall. It was definitely luxurious. However, this place was strangely quiet. Other than a few guests who came to visit, it wasn't very lively. It wasn't that they didn't want to come, but Old Master had said that it was a family banquet, and they weren't going to discuss any business. Beside the sandalwood chessboard, Old Master was still playing chess with his friends. The moment Qin Mo entered, his stern face broke into a smile. Everyone didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Other than Qin Mo, there wasn't anyone else who could make Old Master behave like this. Qin Mo walked over, his voice neither servile nor overbearing. Grandpa Yuan, Grandpa Wu. The two elders nodded, their eyes filled with admiration. I've seen so many so-called dragons and phoenixes, but little Mo is still the most handsome. Old Master loved hearing this. He turned to the helper and said, start preparing dinner, make more of what young master likes. Yes. That person was also an elder who had stayed in the Yin family for a long time. He used to take care of movie Queen and knew Qin Mo's tastes like the back of his hand. After Old Master finished speaking, he turned and teased. You only see your two grandfathers, don't you see your sister Wu? At this moment, the beauty who was lying on the table lifted her head. She was really beautiful, with a small mouth and fair skin. She was wearing a police uniform, and her eyes were very bright. Qin Mo didn't respond to Old Master An's words. Instead he said calmly, I can only accompany grandfather until 6, I have to pick someone up. Pick someone up? Old Master raised his eyebrows. That was strange. What kind of person could make his noble grandson pick someone up? He couldn't help but look at Secretary Liang behind Qin Mo. Mr. Liang, who is he picking up? Secretary Liang respected Old Master very much, so he replied respectfully even though it was a little hard for him to say it out loud. It's the god brother that young master recently got, a member of the team, a good player. He did not mention young Master Fu's name. Although Old Master might not have heard of young Master Fu's past achievements, what if he had? Grandpa laughed. You brat, other than doing business, your team members are all grown up. You don't even know how to find a girlfriend. My Wu Zhen is still single. Old Master Wu said. This kind of thing cannot be rushed. The beauty stood up and glanced at Qin Mo, smiling faintly. Since Brother Mo isn't looking, I'm not in a hurry either. Yes. You've been like this since you were young. Whatever your brother Mo does, you'll do. Old Master Wu heaved a long sigh. Now you actually became a police officer. Can your face stand being exposed to the sun and wind every day? Wu Zhen curved her lips, looking rather carefree. Grandpa, didn't I say not to compare ordinary girls with me? Just look at him, just look at his indifference. Old Master Wu had no choice, but his eyes were filled with pride. Grandpa said, that's how it should be. However, Zhener, you must remember not to rush forward in the face of danger. Chapter 494. The drunkard had ulterior motives. That was Secretary Liang's first reaction. But in front of so many elders, the CEO wouldn't reject it, right? Secretary Liang said it was only right. I swore to never touch any cases again. Qin Mo's voice was calm, but it was loud enough for everyone to hear. Wu Zhen paused, then smiled. I'll ask you again when you want to. Qin Mo didn't speak. Wu Zhen seemed to have discovered something. Brother Mo, why is your phone screen broken? Secretary Liang thought to himself, I fell in the car just now. It slipped and fell on the ground. Qin Mo turned his head, obviously not wanting to continue the conversation. Wu Zhen pulled a chair over and sat beside him, smiling at him. Secretary Liang didn't know why, but he felt that this was something young Master Jiu would do. I heard that the Qin group is having a masquerade ball today. I haven't participated in such an event in a long time. Brother Mo, can you give me a ticket? Qin Mo didn't speak. Old Masterin laughed. Go if you want to. This kid won't bring you. Let Mr. Liang bring you in. Secretary Liang was the target of 3 pairs of eyes. He glanced at the CEO who was sipping on his tea as if it had nothing to do with him. He could only bite the bullet and reply, yes. Old Masterin was trying to matchmake CEO Qin and Miss Wu. A blind date in disguise. When Qin Mo heard this, he put down his porcelain cup and stood up. I still have a meeting. It's not suitable for me to stay for long. Grandfather, I'll accompany you tomorrow. Old Masterin understood the meaning behind his words. He knew that his grandson always had his own opinions. He thought the kid would have feelings for Zhen. After all, Zhen liked to follow him so much that even a rock would be moved. Why didn't his grandson feel the slightest bit of warmth? Wu Zhen's eyes dimmed after hearing Qin Mo's words. But after a while, she smiled again. For this person. She liked the police profession. She wasn't afraid of hardship or tiredness. Therefore, the rest really didn't count for much. But there was one thing, this person had to be hers. Wu Yan smiled wantonly. She turned around and said to Secretary Liang, then I'll go and dress up first. Thank you, Mr. Liang. This. Secretary Liang looked at the side of his president's face and spat out 3 words with difficulty. No problem. When he got out of an family, Secretary Liang tried his best to explain. Boss Qin, in that situation, I really had to agree. It doesn't matter. Qin Mo was indifferent. Let her go if she wants to. Secretary Liang let out a sigh of relief. Only then did he realize that young master was unusually quiet today, especially when he looked out of the car window. It seemed like he was thinking about something. Moreover, he also knew that these matters were basically related to the 9th young master. The traffic jam in Rivertown started at 5 o'clock. After getting on the viaduct, Secretary Liang turned around and said, Young master, the business dinner tonight. Prepare a costume for the masquerade ball. Qin Mo interrupted him calmly. Order a set of military green female clothing, and send it to the Fu family. No matter how heartless that fellow was. He didn't want his little brother to do something he didn't like in front of so many people. The female military uniform should at least be trousers. Yes. Secretary Liang had always been efficient. In less than half an hour, there was someone specially sent the military uniform to the Fu family. Chapter 495. Secretary Liang held the phone and looked at Qin Mo, who was still fixing his collar. CEO Qin. Forget it. Qin Mo had obviously heard the words on the other end. His long fingers paused, and his voice was a little low. Anyway, that guy has a girl he trusts to protect him. But did he really forget it? Secretary Liang always felt that when his CEO said these 2 words, he was not just a little bit cold. The sky outside finally darkened. Once night fell, it would be foggy. People often joked when they saw Jiangcheng, saying that living in Jiang City was like living in a fairyland. Fortunately, the masquerade party was held in a hotel in the middle of the snow. This place was in the suburbs of Jiang City. The air was a little better. Of course, it was only because of the air purifier and the existence of snow. Out of this place and on the national highway, few people would drive here. But today, it was very lively here. In addition to many good cars, there was also a Christmas tree as decoration. That Christmas tree was very big, and there were many lights hanging on it. In such a dark night, it looked especially beautiful. The atmosphere here was very similar to the Halloween party Fujio had in the Fifth Avenue. The British-style building was covered with vines, and it looked very grand. In addition, some people who came to the masquerade party were wearing ancient robes. With beautiful masks on their faces, it was hard to tell who was who. Occasionally, there were a few people dressed like vampire nobles, which made people feel that this was a castle in the demon world. The bustling place that never sleeps. Lin Feng came early in the morning. He finally washed away the shame of last year. And he wore a forensic suit that he thought looked very manly. A white coat, pure black trousers, and a mask. If it was someone else dressed like this, they would definitely look very ordinary. But Lin Feng didn't realize his aura. Dressing like this was really tempting to commit a crime. Yin Hu wore a well-ironed military uniform and straight military boots. When he walked, he even had a strong and crisp sound. When these two people appeared, the fans who arranged for them to enter looked over. Look, the person cosplaying as a forensic doctor. It must be Lin Feng. I think so too. Is it a forensic doctor this year? What a tempting uniform. Lin Feng hadn't expected a fan to recognize him even though he was wearing a mask. He tilted his head and smiled at Yin Hu. See, sister? It's all because I'm too handsome. Yin Hu arched a brow but didn't say anything. Soon, the fan on the other end of the line continued. You can tell from her temperament, especially when she's standing next to Yunda. Receive? Receive. Lin Feng turned around. The girl who spoke, come over here. Let's have a good talk. I'm so manly, how can I take it? However, Lin Feng wouldn't be so petty as to talk to his fans about this. He was depressed. He had to vent his frustrations. He glanced at his childhood friend. Speaking of which, it was because Yin Hu had been training since he was young that he gave people the feeling that he was stronger. In fact, he was also very good at fighting. His abs were solid, but no matter how much he tanned, he couldn't get a good tan. How could he blame him? No, he had to find a sense of balance with Little Spade today. You're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.